The proud rooster stood atop a wooden crate in the middle of the barnyard, puffing out his chest as he prepared to speak. The morning sun cast a golden glow on his feathers, making him look even more dignified. A group of young chicks, along with a few ducks, rabbits, and piglets, gathered around, their eyes wide with admiration. They knew that whenever the rooster spoke, it was always about something important. With a dramatic flap of his wings, he cleared his throat and began. "My dear friends," he announced, his voice firm and commanding, "we must all strive to live with kindness and integrity. In this world, selfishness leads only to division, but generosity brings unity. The strong must protect the weak, and the wise must guide the young. That is the only way for a community to thrive." The chicks nodded eagerly, hanging on to every word. The ducks exchanged approving glances, and even the sleepy piglets lifted their heads to listen. The rooster continued, his voice rich with passion. "One must never take more than what they need. True strength comes not from pushing others aside but from lifting them up. Only through fairness and selflessness can we build a world where no one goes hungry and everyone is treated with respect." A gentle breeze ruffled his feathers as he took a proud pause, letting his words sink in. He could see the admiration in their eyes, and it filled him with satisfaction. "Remember," he added with a knowing smile, "it is not enough to talk about goodness, one must live by it every day. Our actions define us, not just our words." The barnyard animals burst into applause, flapping wings, clapping hooves, and stomping feet. The chicks whispered among themselves about how wise and noble the rooster was. The rabbits nodded in agreement, and the ducks promised to follow his teachings. The rooster stood tall, basking in their praise, convinced that he had just made the world a better place. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight touched the barnyard, the animals slowly woke up, stretching and yawning. The air was crisp, and the scent of fresh grains filled the space as the farmer poured food into the feeding trough. The young chicks, ducks, and rabbits eagerly made their way forward, their stomachs rumbling after a long night's rest. But before any of them could reach the food, the rooster suddenly darted in, pushing past the smaller animals without hesitation. With his wings spread wide and his sharp beak pecking aggressively, he claimed the best spots for himself. He shoved a duckling aside with his foot, pecked at a hesitant chick that got too close, and flapped his wings to scare off a curious rabbit. His movements were quick and decisive, ensuring that he got the biggest and best grains before anyone else had a chance. The young animals hesitated, exchanging confused glances. This was the same rooster who had preached about kindness and fairness just the day before. Without a second thought, he continued devouring the food, pecking at the golden kernels with no regard for the others waiting behind him. The chicks stood frozen, their tiny beaks slightly open in shock. The ducks muttered to one another, and even the piglets, usually indifferent, watched in disbelief. The rooster didn't seem to notice, or perhaps he didn't care. His words from the previous day had vanished like morning mist, replaced by the simple instinct to take as much as he could. The animals watched in silence, slowly realizing that not all words were meant to be followed, especially when spoken by those who refused to live by them. As the rooster continued to feast, the young chicks hesitated, their small eyes filled with confusion. Just yesterday he had stood tall, preaching about generosity and selflessness. Now he was the first to take, pushing aside those who were weaker and hungrier. A brave little chick finally gathered the courage to speak. With a hesitant voice it asked, "Didn't you say we should share? That the strong should protect the weak?" The rooster barely paused, swallowing another mouthful of golden grains before glancing down at the chick. His expression remained calm, almost amused. "Ah, little one," he said, his tone smooth and unbothered, "what I said was important, of course, but that was just teaching. The real world is different." Then, with a casual flick of his wing, he dismissed the chick's concern and continued eating, ignoring the silent stares from the other animals. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The ducks exchanged knowing looks, the rabbits twitched their noses in disapproval, and the piglets shook their heads. One by one they began to understand. The rooster's words had never been meant as a rule for himself, only for those willing to listen. He had spoken about kindness not because he lived by it, but because it made him look wise. He had preached fairness, yet had no intention of practicing it. The little chick turned to its friends, disappointment settling in. A rabbit sighed and muttered, "So that's how it is. Talking about goodness is easy. Living by it? That's another story." The animals nodded in silent agreement as the rooster continued eating, oblivious to the lesson they had truly learned that day. From the story above, we learn a profound lesson about the hypocrisy of words and the weight of actions. The rooster preaches kindness, fairness, and responsibility, but when faced with real benefits, he is the first to abandon those principles. This makes the animals realize that talking about kindness is easy, but living it is another story. Words are only valuable when backed by actions. A person is only truly trustworthy when they live up to what they say. The lesson here is, don't be fooled by appearances or fancy words. Watch their actions, because that is the true measure of morality and character.